Kia Stanford is a vibrant, award-winning interior designer and the creative director of the London-based luxury residential interior design studio Kia Designs. Let's find out more about the woman who is a self-confessed secret geek. Welcome to the Designer Arty studio.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is ours. Your hair is notable to me instantly because last time I interviewed you, it was pink.
It was. This is the first time, I think, in almost a decade that my hair is actually its natural colour.
Beautiful. I've known you with 5 different hair colours.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that right?
Yeah, at the moment is the first time my husband has actually seen what it looks like, which was a shock to him because when we met, I had like bright red hair. He was just like, was pretty sure I was dating a redhead. And then, nope, he married a redhead and now has been sadly left with a blonde.
He looks stunning. And I know that girls in your office as well, or people in your office have different hair colours. You'll know.
Yes. My receptionist at the moment has blue, black and blonde hair. And yeah, so she's representing all of us now. She has had pink hair last week as well, so.
And no green?
No green for me. No, it
doesn't come out.
It's a really tough colour to get out. So and a very tough colour to put anything else on top of apart from black. So
okay.
Yeah, I have learnt well from my hair studio.
So icebreaker, what have you brought with you? I can see something on the desk.
I have brought a lime crime lipstick. It is called Red Hot, is what I'm wearing. And I brought this because we often test lots of different things at the studio. And as we can see, this lipstick is very good at not coming off. And so whenever we have like tiles or flooring or fabrics, we always try and test to see if things are actually going to be as stain resistant as they say they are. And this is one of the things that is a disaster to try and put on anything and actually come off. So if it is stain resistant and this does then come off, we know it's a good one.
So is that important for you then? Is that important for you? It does what it says on the tin?
Yeah, I think for a lot of our clients, it's just like, it's that they really want to know that we've put the extra effort and hours in to make sure that what we're, sort of going through and what they're asking for is actually like what they're getting. And so for us, it's super important that when we go through and, we're putting in a flooring and we know that we're going to put it into a kitchen and it's a wooden floor and they are a little bit nervous about it, we will spill everything on it, from turmeric to paprika to lipsticks to nail polish to everything like that, to make sure that we're testing it as much as, and testing out our suppliers a little bit of just like, well, you said it wasn't going to stain and we've got a big turmeric stain on this, so how do we take it out? So yeah, that's always quite fun.
Are there any lies or any deception in the interior business that just drive you insane?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think what's always a bit tough, which isn't necessarily a lie, but it's definitely a bit of a deception, is we always would work with our clients at the beginning to get like loads of inspiration together. And a lot of the time it gives you a really good mood of like what they're interested in, how they want their home to feel. And that's like comes across like so well when we're sort of picking pictures and imagery. But a lot of the time clients will sort of veer towards a lot of things that are highly stylized, which is great for a magazine when they're selling product, but not necessarily an actual useful space to be able to create and actually be able to have someone use. So you end up with things like a really heavy chair in front of a bookcase with loads of books on, but it's got, cupboards down at the bottom, and then it's got a light and a lamp in front of it. And it's just like, well, if you ever wanted to use those cupboards, you have to move 3 pieces of furniture to be able to get to them. But the overall sort of like homely feel is what we'll then pull out of that. So that's definitely a little bit of a deceptive sort of thing when you're looking through and you're trying to get inspiration. And we love looking at so many other designers and styling and all of those kind of things, but it's a little bit tricky to then pull that into a finished design.
That's how I feel about fashion. When I was a child, I feel it's ruined part of my world. I remember looking at magazines and thinking, my hair looks like Wurzel Gummidge in real life. Why does it not look like these glossy magazines? And I think it is something that we do need to continue to educate people about. What we see in magazines, either from a furniture design and interior design point of view, it's not always translatable.
Have you heard the song Victoria's Secret?
No.
So one of the lines in that is, I know Victoria's Secret, she was made up by a guy. And it's the idea of just like that, what you're seeing in all of the magazines, and I wish I could go back and tell my previous self when I was little that what you see in the magazines is made up by Photoshop and not actually real. And I think that, not to say that the styling isn't real, but it's definitely not doable for somebody's actual home where they're going to want to live. So I think that still rings true of like, yeah, it would be nice to see and at least be able to understand and disassociate those two things from being like a stylized version and an actual useful home are pretty different.
But I guess, you know, from you're dealing in the residential market currently, and I know you're looking to branch out into the commercial market. But I guess, you know, for people at home who are looking for sources of inspiration, that would be the natural go-to, a magazine.
Yep, definitely. And it's always just about seeing like the idea behind it and not necessarily the thing that's there.
What does that mean, the idea behind it?
So people might look and they'll see like a super cozy corner that I was talking about of just like, you know, bookcase and a lovely chair and all of those kind of things. And what we sort of take out of that in terms of like, if you would break it down, is just like they want somewhere that is individually spaced for them to be able to sit and read and have a, you know, the coffee cup can be right next to them. Everything is within reach, but they're tucked up in this lovely little corner with all the things that they love, whether it's books or artwork or all of those kinds of things. So you could be in a room that's, you know, we're currently doing a 7,500 square foot house in Hampstead. All of the rooms are huge proportions, but the clients really love that kind of feel of just everything being within reach. It's pretty difficult when you've got a living room that is 6 meters by 7.5 meters. It's pretty big. Everything's not going to be within reach, and you know we can seat 12 people in there. So everyone has that thing of like every single seat has somewhere you can put a coffee table, a coffee cup down. Everything has somewhere where you could, you know, not worry about somebody spilling a glass of red wine. So that's what we kind of take of like that underlying view of like what's actually behind that design is those feelings and that usability.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? You know, we're talking more and more about moods. We're talking about how do we create a feeling in a space, and what would be your guide and advice?
Normally, when we're looking to, most of our clients will come to us with a feeling of just like, I really want it to feel, airy. And it's just like what that says to me is that we're looking for lots of nice light colors, that we probably want to use a lot of sort of negative space, which means that we're sort of focused on one item, but there's actually a lot of space around it to either side. So whether that's like, you know, you've got one single large piece of artwork on a wall, but actually you've got the same amount of disproportionate clear space on either side. So it means, proportionate space on either side. So it means that it just feels really nice and open. Often it means with that they don't want lots of clutter. So if they say airy, we normally see storage, because you want to be able to, people still live and they still have all of their stuff, but they just don't want to see it out.
Concealed storage. So it's almost like interior people are having to become almost like detectives. And when they are in a design process, they're having to overcome assumed assumptions and create a new language together with a client. Yeah,
because the thing is often sometimes people expect clients to understand that language from the beginning. And I think that most of our clients tend to be relatively new to hiring an interior designer, or they've done small things before, but they've never done most of the projects we work on are full scale refurbs now. And so they haven't done a project like that before. They've, done a couple of small things. They've worked with a designer, but nothing where they're going to be out of a home for 18 months for us to be able to redo it. So it's a new way of talking about everything. And to expect that they're going to have any knowledge of that language is probably a lot to ask, because they're just not going to. We're having to discern a lot from the samples that they pick, or from the colors that they go for, or the imagery that we look through. And they'll just, sort of say, oh yeah, I love the feeling. And, I really like being able to leave everything, to everything have a space for it. Or like, I love being able to see all of my books. And but they won't always say that initially in the first sort of thing. So they'll come up with words that don't necessarily mean the same to you as a designer.
Give some examples then of textures or words that clients are coming in with that you're having to decode.
Homely is always one of them.
What does that mean?
It means different things for different people. And so we'll then go down the sort of rabbit hole. Like what we call our inspiration meeting is once clients have said, yep, we're happy to work with you. We've got a good idea of what the brief and scope is. We bring them into the studio and we go through tons of imagery and loads of samples. What that means is you get to feel all of those materials and sort of have a good idea, because some people's idea of homely is loads of pattern. Loads of pattern, lots of furniture, all tucked in together, like things really close together. And other people's idea of homely is something that just has warm tones to it and actually has no pattern to it whatsoever. So yeah, you are sort of, I used to say that I was part circus ringmaster and part detective and part marriage guidance counsel.
Absolutely.
So a lot of the time it is that kind of thing of like you're mixing together all of these ideas, because again, one thing that one partner might say might mean a completely different thing to somebody else, and so you've got to kind of get below all of that and then try and pull it all through and work it out. But a lot of the things is taking away that language and making it so that clients don't necessarily need to know it, so that when they're trying to explain it, they can just explain it with words and textures and colours and things like that, and then we can piece it all back together. So yeah, it's tough because homely doesn't mean the same to anyone.
Hey there, if you're enjoying this episode and want to hear more exciting and informative chats about design and architecture, then don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, back to the episode.
So we're talking about the word homely. Any more words that clients come to you with and kind of need decoding and have ambiguity around them?
Yeah, a lot of the time people will say that they really like things minimal. And then we always, if it's possible, we do a site survey at their new home. Often we tend to be brought in when they're moving, or if they're at their current home, we'll do a site survey there. And my favorite thing is people saying that they're really minimal. And what they mean is, that they don't want to see any of their stuff because they actually have a huge amount of stuff and they're not minimal at all. What they want is a minimalistic look. They want to be able to see space. They want to be able to see clean sides. Had a absolutely fabulous client. She was so wonderful. Went to her property and she had 2 boys, twins, and they were 1. So you can imagine it's just like lots of stuff. Went round the gorgeous bungalow, and she was moving to a much bigger place in Surrey. And we went through it all and we were kind of looking, and I was just like, wow, this is impressive. Like, there is so little clutter for somebody with 1-year-old twins. And we were walking on and I was just like, oh, and what about this room? She said, don't open that door. I was like, why? And it's just like, don't open it. And I was like, no, I'm afraid we're going to have to open the door now. And I opened it and it was almost floor to ceiling with just stuff. And I was like, this is why we do not tidy before an interior designer comes over.
Oh, she tidied all her...
She'd put away all of the clutter and all of the things. And I was just like, we just need to know where they are and know what you use them for so that we can find them a better home in the next place.
And find you a solution that works for you.
Yep. So that it makes it... Like, good design is really effortless. It means that it's really easy to live in. You notice bad design. You don't tend to often notice good design because you get so used to it. It's so intuitive. It's so everything is at your fingertips. Whereas bad design drives you nuts within about 20 minutes. And so for us, it was really interesting to then see that, because she wanted a very minimalist look. And what she really wanted was lots of storage, lots of places to be able to put loads of different size things and to be able to cope with the amount of stuff that twin boys were going to need, which is fine. And it just needed a new working of how that actually, what that actually meant, because she wasn't minimalist. She was never going to be minimalist with 2 little babies. And she just needed a little bit of help with that.
Isn't that an interesting metaphor for life? She's actually coming to you to provide her with a design solution, and she's hiding the very problem that you're looking to help her solve.
Yes. Again, that wasn't necessarily marriage guidance, but maybe a little bit of therapy.
Yeah, you're needing to be a therapist as well as a detective. Yeah. So your background is actually a history degree.
Yeah, I came at the industry from a really interesting angle. I was working part-time while I was doing my history degree in an interior design store in Islington. And I absolutely loved it. I worked there 3 days a week and was at university for 4 days a week. And yeah, I just loved it.
What did you love about it?
I loved people coming in and being excited to start that part of a journey of like buying new things for their home. That was really fun and interesting to sort of see. But the one thing that the store didn't do was we didn't have an interior design service. So we were a design store. So we had set up room sets and everything like that, and people would come in, but they would just buy the individual pieces of furniture, or they could buy like the room sets, sort of how they were set up, or take inspiration from that. But we slowly started to creep into sort of doing interior design, and I loved being able to see people's problems and to see them sort of come in and be like, I have no idea what to do with this space. It just doesn't like kind of work. And that was just really interesting to sort of see it from that side of things, of actually really listening to the clients, because you know that's what you're there to do. You're actually not trying to come up with your own idea. You're actually kind of coming at it from more their perspective of like, okay, they've got, a dressing room and they can't seem to get it to work, but they really want to be able to, have a dressing table in here, but it doesn't seem to be able to work with the space that they've got. What do we have available? Can we create anything that's new? And we started doing, bespoke furniture and stuff like that really helped. And so when I finished my degree, pardon me, sorry. When I finished my degree, I handed in my dissertation, and I had already set up to do a master's in American history. And I handed in my dissertation and I was like, nope, I do not want to go back and do, I don't want to do the dissertation again. I don't want to do another degree again. I need a bit of space. And as soon as I handed that in, I instantly was just like, I'd like to do interior design. I've really enjoyed learning about it. And I'd done, part of a degree before, and then I'd done this one. So I'd been in the store by then for about 5 years and had loved every second of being able to help people and go through and find everything out and see like funny, quirky little solutions, or look for a new fabric for something because they really needed it to match curtains they already had. And I really loved that. So as soon as I handed that dissertation in, I was like, nope, I'm done.
One of the many things that I admire about you is you come across as very grounded, but you've also, I sense there's no remorse or regret or when you make a decision, that is it. You are clear, you are concise, and you're focused.
Yeah, which I find does tend to help me when you're leading a team, which is it's helped me in different sort of parts of being an interior designer. It's definitely helped me in sort of early stages of going in and sort of knowing what, I don't end up with like 13 different options for a sofa. It's just like, no, we kind of know what we're looking for, and I will be quite decisive about, there's 3 different things that could work here. Let's go. And it is very decisive. It's very concise, which has definitely been nice. And it's definitely helped me now that I am running a team and sort of overseeing a lot of different designs from a lot of different projects, and being able to switch between them when we've got 17 projects on, which is, if we took the average project having about 12 rooms, it's quite a lot of rooms to be able to design. It's quite a lot of different design styles. It's loads of different product. It's lots of different pieces to go together, and being able to make sure that I can go into those and help the team also be decisive over their choices and sort of say like, nope, not that one. This one will definitely work. And, guide them in that way, I think helps. They also know that if I'm not going to come back to them 20 minutes later and sort of be like, oh, actually, not too sure, maybe we should change it to this. And they're like, I've just muddled it all up in SketchUp, Kia.
You're a strong leader, a powerful woman. Where does this come from? Can you cite anywhere? This inner confidence?
Trauma. Probably trauma. I didn't have I had a wonderful childhood up until like the age of 9, and then not a great childhood from 9 to 18. So I think it's made me hyper independent. To a point of just like, no, I know that I need to be able to rely on myself. and I need to be able to get things done. And so that's just like shone through then in a work ethic.
And what I sense with you is you've actually identified an adversity that you experienced as a child, and you've transferred it into something that comes across as very courageous. Because if I think about you've studied as a classics degree, like a history degree, and then you've moved into a creative field, and I'm just curious about how did people around you perceive that decision of yours, and did you care?
I probably didn't care a huge amount, but I think one of the things that's often sort of comes up is just like, oh, Kia will be fine, which is normally the thing of just like, Kia will just get on with, if that's what she's decided to do, then that's what she's decided to do. And so I think a lot of people were very accepting and positive over me sort of saying like, I'm going to go and do this. I've always been there to put in the work and to sort of see where I needed to improve or needed to, there are so many members of my team who do things that I couldn't even dream of doing. They do all of the SketchUp, and I'm happy to be able to see my lacking as a great opportunity to be able to bring in somebody that can do something amazing.
But that's that's a confident skill to have, to hire people around you that you are aware are better than you at certain things.
Yeah, 100%. They just, it's the only way that we're going to be able to do some of the amazing things. I can't do all of it myself. And so being able to create a team that I love, and a team that works really well together, and a team that, can do things that I wouldn't even dream of. Some of the things that when we put them together, or they are what I dreamed of. That's probably a better way around of saying it, of just like, that I'll look and I'll come up with these ideas and we'll go through all of it and have a really good concept for all of the materials and everything like that. And then they create it in, a 3D visualization. I'm just like, it's perfect. Is lovely. It's nice to be able to do that. And also for them to know that, when we're going through and we're finding different things that don't really gel with what we thought were the brief and scope, or having to make those changes, that it's not also a personal thing against them. It's just being able to get us to the point that we need to make sure that the clients are super happy with their new home, which is lovely. And I think that's probably because I just don't tend to muck around a huge amount.
No, or take things personally. I can sense with you, the difference between what's right versus who. You care less about who's right. You just have an instinct about what's right.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so, because it is, I think, I'm not necessarily, there's nothing more disarming than when somebody sort of comes to you and says something and you're just like, you know what, I was wrong. Thank you. Yeah, no, I was wrong about that. That definitely, whether it's a, design decision or a personal thing, and sort of saying like, yeah, no, I was wrong.
There's a power
of
vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's lovely to see. And I think it definitely means that we don't come into a lot of the things with an ego. If clients, at the end of the day, it's their home. And that's what we want to create, is a home for them, whether it's their only home or their 7th or 8th home. It is one of those things of just like, they still are going to need to and want to use it with their families at times, whether it's, on and off throughout the year, or that it's going to work really, really hard with 4 kids. It doesn't matter where that is. We know that they've got to have the home that they want. And there isn't a sort of ego. And it does also mean that all of our projects are super different. So one time we're working on something that's very classical, lots of detailing, brass inlays and beautiful bespoke furniture that has loads of veneer patterns and mirrored glass, loads of different things. And then we'll be working on something that's completely different, and a modern concept, has very little in terms of wood in it, but it's got lots more marble, and it's got just a completely different feel to it. We've just finished a bathroom that's got no tiles on the walls at all.
What material have you
We've
used?
put a concrete plaster up.
Nice.
And it's stunning. But again, it's like completely different from anything else, because we don't go into it with an idea of like, it needs to be, this. It just needs to be what they're looking for, and that's what we try and translate for them, which again comes back to that idea of like, what do they say and what do they actually kind of mean. That translation of words to design sometimes just works so much better with actual material and imagery.
And trends, I have the answer to this already. What's your
don't do trends. Which isn't to say that they don't make their way into the designs. They will, because people are influenced by the things that they see around them, whether it be that they're influenced by bits and pieces of fashion that they see, or material choices that are being used on the tube or in restaurants or in hotels that they visit. Like people are always going to be influenced by the things that are around them and sort of see and liken them to certain qualities that they'd want in their home. So it's not to say that they don't make their way into it, but it's not something that we do tend to like take a huge amount of time researching or looking at. It just tends to be something that turns up in more and more of the overall research that we do. But we wouldn't sort of be like, oh yes, we're going to do this really trendy bathroom, unless somebody has very specifically sort of like pulled that through in their inspiration that they wanted, you know, terrazzo tiles and things like that we know are a trend at the moment. But it doesn't tend to be something that leads a lot of our designs.
Why do you think your clients choose you?
Transparency probably helps them a little bit. We're very clear about what our design fees are. They're on the website. They're quite clear as to like the kinds of projects that we do take on.
Which comes back to your lipstick. I mean, you do what you say on the tin. Yeah, you're open and honest.
Yeah, so we think that really helps clients to be able to, especially newer people who are, you know, looking at doing a design project for the first time, or as I said, have done smaller things before and are now sort of branching out into doing a much larger project, then that really helps them to be able to get a good idea of like, okay, you know, we're going to be spending £40,000 on fees. It's not a small amount of money, but it is a clear amount of money for what they're going to be then getting, and if everything is nicely set out for them to know what that's going to include. So that's always a nice way around of them being able to kind of see. And I think because we don't have, the studio itself doesn't have a set design style. We don't have like a style that we repeat, that you sort of go and you look at an interiors project and say, you know, oh, that's been done by Catherine Pooley. Oh, that's been done by Laura Hammett. Oh, that's been done by Sophie Patterson. Like there are certain designers that their work is stunning. It's beautiful work. It's got an aesthetic to it that is their own. And that is their own kind of brand with a twist of whoever's home it is. And those twists can be stunning and gorgeous, but it's not a completely new overall aesthetic. Whereas all of ours, my social media and marketing manager has a interesting time trying to make our Instagram not look like an absolute shambles, because our projects are so varied, because the colors are so varied, the palettes are so different for every single one that, you know, we end up doing our Instagram by color. It's the only way we can make it not look too shambolic, because otherwise you're sort of looking at, you know, a super, say that bathroom that's got the concrete walls next to the property that we were talking about before, which is all hand painted wall coverings on a silk background that's got, you know, butterflies and birds all over it. Like those are such differing styles, and so different to design that you wouldn't have almost thought that it was the same company that did them. And so that's really then tough to be able to get a cohesive look overall.
But I also think that's reflective of who you are. I mean, I commented when I met you this morning that you are grounded, you're feisty, you are somebody that I barely know, who I know if you say you are going to do something, you will do it. You're fully transparent and honest. But also you reminded me of Dita Von Teese. I see you've got some tattoos on your arm and almost,
I do, yeah.
Yeah, with your red pop of lipstick and your bat wing, and you know, there's kind of like, what I see from you is like you fly the flag to actually be unique and to, you know, to honor who you feel like you want to be in the moment, be it with your hair color or the pop of your lipstick or the tone of your clothes.
Yeah, I think that being able to have like I do like variety, I think, for us. And I think we end up with a lot of designers in the studio that do also appreciate that variety. They're looking to hone the skills of being able to create interesting designs, not necessarily the design that they want, but actually the design that someone else wants. And that's tough. That's really, really tough. You know, whenever I see somebody sort of being like, oh yeah, I'm a ghostwriter, I'm like, wow, what a difficult job.
Selfless.
To also
devoid of ego.
Yeah, to take somebody else's voice and try and like write as that person, and to pull all of that through, and to understand and get behind, sort of like why they're doing things, and what's the sort of like tone and that they would speak in, which we find that we do for people's homes, and it's wonderful when we then have clients sort of say like, one of our clients that we recently finished, she's just like, all of my friends have walked in and just been like, dude, this is so you. This house is just so, it's you, like, man, how did you do it? And he's just like, I had an interior designer, and they were quite surprised because they were just like, but it just seems like it's completely like all of the things that you would have picked. And it's like, yeah, it's his personality, it's his aesthetic, it's what he really loves and is drawn to, but we just make it work. And so for us, that's kind of like, that's lovely. I love being able to do that. But yeah, we have a lot of designers in the studio, and I love also getting into those different sort of personalities and getting into those different aesthetics, because I like being able to change things up a bit.
What are some problems that people are having in their homes that you're able to find a solution for?
People always, most of our projects tend to be southeast based in the UK for the main part, and storage is always the problem, at least usable storage. There are loads of properties that we work on that have vast amounts of storage, but they're in poor positions, or they just don't work for them every single day. So storage is definitely an issue that we're constantly striving to improve for everybody. Other things that we're sort of seeing, I think, are people being able to work from home. We're finding a lot more projects where we are still putting in 2 offices into people's homes, because they do need to be able to work from home, and they do both have Zoom meetings for large portions of the day. So that's something that's definitely a little bit new.
Where are you snatching space from in homes for offices?
So whether it's either just looking, 2 of the ones that we've done recently, one of them was going to be a guest room. And so what we have done is we've done a stunning design for a wall bed. So the bed is still there, it's in the wall, it's still a double-sized bedroom for that, but on a day-to-day it's an office. And so it's definitely produced a really interesting aesthetic to it, and it's quite, sort of like from lots of different other parts of the world, you'd just be like, yeah, that's completely normal, of course you do that, but it's not necessarily something we tend to do a huge amount in the UK, and so it's not necessarily snatching the space from somewhere else, it's just thinking about how different that's going to be, because every day, Monday to Thursday for one of the people, that's their office, and they want to be able to use it every single day. They'll have guests come, and if they do come, they are there for, sort of 4 to 6 weeks, because they, it tends to be family members who live abroad. But that's not every single day. So if you're looking at it in a time perspective of every single day for 4 days a week while they go into the office for 1, and even when that sort of switches, it's still going to be mostly an office. So it will be set every single day like that, and then using wall beds. We've been using some stunning sofa beds, but not necessarily in the traditional sense, but something that actually works really well as a sofa bed. We've got a stunning Italian company called Flu who we use a lot to be able to do their sofa beds, because they are so comfortable, and things like that. So for the most part, it's just re-looking at the space and looking at how you can reallocate it as opposed to completely changing it. But it's still a bit of a challenge.
So more flexible living spaces.
Yeah, definitely. And
living,
I think people are enjoying that.
Have you read this month's issue of Designer magazine yet? Available in digital and print editions, Designer magazine keeps you updated on the world of design and architecture. Get your free trade subscription today at designerarty.co.uk.
Tell me about your... when I researched you, you did an interview and commented that you're a secret geek.
Yeah.
I love that. What does that mean?
I'm really into comics. I've been, pretty much reading comics for like the past decades because my husband got me into them and just completely fell in love with the sort of fantasy side of everything. So I adore seeing new comics, comic book art, and things like that. So
what specifically about the comic? Is it the style of the pictures, or is it the story, or
the artist's work is definitely transports you into like a different world. So it's, it's a bit like anyone who's massively into reading. It's, it's just a slightly different form and it gives you a little bit more to sort of go on. But I love being able to see that communication between the story and the artwork, and seeing how that all comes together to be able to really paint a picture in your head of exactly what's sort of going on and be able to, see it and understand all of these characters. I just absolutely love it. I'm often off to a convention, comics convention, to be able to sort of see like different comic book artists and writers.
I've never heard of these. And these conventions are in the UK, because normally I've seen them in America, but not in the UK.
Yeah, tons of them in the UK. There's big sort of comics and more pop culture, I'd say, in the UK as well. But there's loads of ones for anime. There's, pretty much anything that you can think of. Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, Star Wars. There's a convention for everything. Every single show that you can think of, there will be a convention where, the stars turn up and you can have photos and pictures, which isn't necessarily something that I tend to do. And then there's everybody kind of, cosplaying and dressing up and really enjoying sort of a different way of being creative.
So I heard you saying that this was a form of escapism for you. And I'm wondering, as a creative, what are your sources of inspiration for creativity?
I absolutely adore being able to see any kind of natural scapes. So whether it be something like going on holiday and being able to see like different colours and how different light reacts to different colours. I'm sure we've all made that horrible mistake of buying something on holiday and like the colours look amazing when you're on holiday and you're just like, this dress is fantastic, and you get back to London and you're just like, holy, this dress is hideous, just because the light is so different. And I love being able to sort of like understand and play about with that. So anything natural and seeing all of those materials sort of play off against each other is wonderful. I get a lot of inspiration from travel because I think it's so fascinating, and also the cultures that sort of bring those colours and where any of also that history of colour kind of comes from is really fun and a really good thing to be able to understand and play about with. Other inspiration I do love is fashion. I think that it often pulls through into interiors a little bit of a faster pace now than it used to, but it is lovely to see sort of where things are going fashion-wise, and to see where that pulls through in interiors.
How do you, in the workplace, I'm just imagining how fashion and design kind of interlace together, and I'm imagining, sometimes you might present something in a meeting that is definitely works for you and you can see it as being inspirational, but sometimes might need to have a little bit of convincing behind. I'm wondering how you handle conflict and negotiation in the workplace.
What we tend to do is mainly go through and sort of see, does what we're looking at and what we're presenting, does it fulfill the brief and scope for the client? Like, does it fulfill what they really asked for? Sometimes that can mean we push them a little bit. We sort of sitting in a client meeting and, they sort of went through and just like, I'm really worried, Kia, that this is really boring. Please don't let it be boring. And I was like, come on, this is me. I'm not going to let it be boring. That's fine. But it was that kind of thing of just like, sometimes it's just looking at what they've asked for. And again, using a little bit of that language and sort of seeing if it can go a little bit further, and that, sometimes they will need to take a step back, and I always kind of say, like, sleep on it, have a look at it again in the morning and sort of be like, is that where I want to, is that where I want to sleep? Is that where I want to walk into? Is that what I want to, be using? Does it work for the purpose on the basis? going to do that again just because I hit the mic. Sorry, Dom. Does it, work for the purpose on like the base? Does it, fulfill all of the things like functionality wise that it needs to do? If it means that some of the, choice on top of that needs to change in terms of something that's a little bit more edgy or a little bit of a material that they wouldn't have gone for, or, it's a little bit like sometimes those are the accessory pieces, that's an amazing hat or a bag or a pair of shoes that they're like, oh, I don't know about that. Then that's fine. We can either change it. But what we do tend to do is give them the time and space to be able to see whether it is something that they want or can live with. We normally do 3 versions of the design. So we'll normally do a version 1, push them a little bit, go for, like the edges of sort of like their brief and scope, maybe introduce a few things that they weren't expecting. Clients sometimes are like, absolutely amazing, fantastic, let's go with it, I really love it. Normally though, some people will come back with version 2 and they'll say, can we just, like, these things were a bit much for us, can we change them? And we'll change them. And then version 3 is about 60 to 70% of the things that we changed back to the thing at the beginning. And then it's changing a few other bits to kind of like make it work. So a lot of the time that's kind of what people are looking for, is a new idea, a new bit of inspiration. And something also that they wouldn't have thought of. One of the, we're doing a utility room at the moment, which is not necessarily what people would think of, like, oh, an exciting space. I love them. Love utility rooms. So much fun. They're an absolute disaster most of the time, which is like, most of the time they're just a mess. But we've put in a steamer cupboard, which is means that you can put your clothes in, and whether it's dresses or shirts or thing, and it will steam them.
Oh, Smallbone have one in their studio at the moment. Oh, very good.
Yep. Yeah. So we've put one in because the clients are about to have a baby, and they're probably not going to have the amount of time that they did to iron.
Yeah.
And so, knowing what they're like, they're both impeccably dressed and very fashion forward. And it would just be nice for them to be able to not have to worry about, I'm sure they'll get a lot of things laundered and things like that. But if they are, just like, oh, this just needs a quick refresh, they're not going to have the time with by the time we move into here, 5-month-old baby, to be able to kind of do those things. So let's provide them with something that makes their life a little bit easier on the day-to-day. And yeah, that's going to be gorgeous to sort of see it working for them and being useful.
Yeah, those steam rooms are exciting. Any more new innovations that you're aware of?
We've put in a quote, which isn't necessarily a new innovation, but it's definitely something that clients, I think, still really enjoy, is when we're doing kitchens, is being able to extract into the island unit. So you've got the hob and extractor all put in together. Those are fantastic and really actually allow us to be a lot more inventive with our design, so that we can, put a hob necessarily somewhere where we might not have previously, because we didn't have the depth to be able to have an extractor behind it, and we definitely didn't want to put anything down from the ceiling. So that's definitely really fun to be able to use those, and those have gone into a couple of projects recently. And clients, do seem to enjoy, like, oh, actually I can, especially if we've still got open plan spaces that we're working with, and they want to be able to talk with guests and everything when they're cooking, as opposed to being able to have the sink on the island. They want to be able to cook on the island because people are coming over when they're doing that. They're not coming over when they're doing the washing up. So things like that have definitely really helped and produced a much more interesting design.
Any new product? How does that work?
It doesn't mean we're completely against printing anything, but there's definitely, we don't tend to print a huge amount of things. We're not sort of like really heavy on anything like, printing out all of the plans and everything like that. We'll print them out for when we need to, but most of the team work really well. We've got iPads to be able to jot down if you need to do sketches and things like that. We've got, the laptops all to be able to sort of work. It's not necessary for us to be able to print. Definitely come out a little bit of obviously everyone working from home and not necessarily having those facilities, but we've been pretty much paperless for like the last 8 years. We also make sure that all of our samples are recycled or reused, and so at the moment we are pairing with a couple of different universities to see if they can go into their material labs to make sure that they then are, inspiring the next generation of designers, which is really nice. Or they end up going to my daughter's nursery because now there is a very bougie set of kids that are dealing with some lovely, lovely samples for collage.
Fabulous. If you were the head of all the design agencies around the world, what would you insist is implemented
that nothing goes into landfill? I think that, and I am often championing it, not just with other design studios, but also with any of the people who are making all of the products. I find it almost laughable that a lot of companies will now bring out a very eco-friendly product, whether it be a fabric that's made from, plastic bottles and everything like that. It's all, we've, taken it all from this item, and you can't return samples to them. That seems to be completely counterintuitive to me, to be able to actually bring out any of these products that are using a material. Okay, you've taken it from somewhere that it definitely shouldn't be, but then to not actually allow us to even return the samples that we have 13, 14 days later, it seems like a ridiculous thing to do, because there must be hundreds of thousands of samples that they've sent out. That is a huge weight on them to be able to produce and to be able to, all of the materials that go into that. And then there's nothing that we can kind of do with them. As I said, we're now passing them on to universities and to, other places to be able to make sure that they are reused, but that sort of definitely upsets me. Anywhere we go into, we also try and make sure that everything that we pull out finds a new home. So whether that is making sure that it even just goes on sites like FreeCycle and Olio to make sure that somebody is coming to collect, that plumbing kit, why not? Let's make sure that it's not going to just be another thing that's just disused and sent into landfill. It's just not needed. And I think, a lot of, I would love to see more suppliers looking at how they could, if they are championing sustainability, how they are able to take back any of their products to be able to either break them down and reuse them, or actually reuse them as they are. Because it seems to be one of those things that gets spoken about a lot, but it isn't something that I see being then actioned in smaller, much more interesting ways, where you can kind of see that, it's not actually happening on a day-to-day basis. It's happening on a product launch basis.
You don't appreciate hypocrites, do you? That was the word I was looking for, integrity. That oozes through you. How would your team describe you?
Probably strong. I probably think I'm way too funny. Caffeinated. I think that they probably would say that I'm pretty strong, but very decisive, and I'm hopefully fair.
Well, Kia, thank you. I've loved chatting with you, and the hour has literally just flown by. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Now, if you've enjoyed today's podcast, please do like and subscribe. I'm going to be here every Monday morning with more exciting guests for you to tune into. See you then.